Welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar, The Real Growth Levers for Online Marketing in 2025. It's presented by 415 Digital and Search Engine Land. I'm Danny Goodwin, Editorial Director of Search Engine Land. Before we get started, just a few viewing tips for you. If you have any audio issues, you can click the audio icon on your screen. If you have any viewing issues, you can use the Q&A section to communicate with us. And you can send questions and comments directly to the speakers about their presentation at any time, and they'll answer as many of those as they can at the end of the presentation. Now it's time to introduce our speakers. Joining us today from 415 Digital are co-founder Mike Nelson and Senior Director of Paid Media, Keenan Townsend. Welcome, Mike and Keenan. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll turn things over to you.
Great. Thanks, Danny. Good morning to everyone. So I wanted to do a little bit more of an introduction on ourselves. First, I'm going to introduce Keenan. So Keenan, I think, has been in the business about 10 years or so. He's got two daughters, pretty newborn kids there. And he says that he's an athlete. I'm not really sure if that still holds, but Division I and college soccer goalie. So definitely a really motivated guy, and I'm super proud to be co-hosting this with Keenan.
Thanks, Mike. Definitely a pastime of mine. Definitely moved into the career space and left sports behind me a couple of years ago now. So did want to say a little bit about Mike Nelson here as well. Obviously a co-founder here at 415 Digital, a true mentor of mine, pioneer in the paid media digital marketing space. Been doing this for 15 plus years now. He personally has probably spent over $3 billion across the various ad platforms here himself. So yeah, very good person to look up to, really true professional in the space. So yeah, excited to be doing this with him here.
All right, awesome. Well, let's definitely get into it. So we want to talk about a few things today. I think this is really just a result of a lot of the things that we hear from our clients. I mean, there's a lot of hype right now, specifically about AI. We hear about it every single day as an agency. And kind of maybe surprisingly, our reaction to it is just, okay, let's move forward. Let's figure out how this works. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about is like, how do we separate all the hype that's out there with sort of the reality of where we're at today, so that we can move the business forward today, without sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So we're going to really take a step back. We're going to talk about some fundamental things like the way that myself or Keenan would look at a new product within Google or Meta. That's the way that we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk a little bit about, how we think about these black box algorithms. These are nothing new. Google's been doing black box kind of algorithms for probably 7 or 8 years. So when you talk about AI Max or PMax, it's just more version of the same. So on and so forth. We're also going to have a section about AI creative and where's that at right now? Like, what's the reality of that? Should we be shifting all of our budget to that? Should we be firing our team? How should we view that, at least from the eyes of an agency? So I'm going to take the first section here. Keenan, definitely jump in as needed. But we wanted to talk about AI Max, not so much specifically about AI Max, but just like in the context of AI Max, how do we think about new products? So if you're not super familiar with AI Max, really there's 3 components of it. It's a Google Ads product. The first component is intelligent search term matching. Nobody really knows what that means. You can read the definition of that here. Next one would be dynamic text customization. So you can read the definition here. And then finally, URL expansion. So as a practitioner, when I read the specifics of these things that AI Max does, none of these are new. There's been variations of broad match in the past. There's been modified broad match. There's been PMax. There's been dynamic search ads. All of these things have existed in the past. So what we need to do as practitioners, or the way that like somebody like Keenan and myself look at this, it was like, okay, this is great. We're excited about a new feature. We're sort of ignoring the name a little bit. AI, okay, who cares? Max, okay, who cares? This is just some sort of branding. What it actually does is nothing new. And if you were to read the documentation from Google, which I always recommend people read the actual documentation, it even says directly that it's sort of just like a bundling of old things into one, and then they've created AI Max. So instantly when we read what AI Max actually does, we sort of say, hey, it's not that exciting, right? So Keenan is going to talk about some other instances of things that Google's come out with that have maybe been a little bit overhyped, not actually made significant changes to performance. But yeah, go ahead, Keenan.
Yeah, exactly. So some of these things, AI Max is, as Mike said, just the new shiny thing in Google Ads platform specifically. But it's definitely not the first across any of these platforms: Meta, LinkedIn, DSPs, things like that. If you recall, there used to be text ads, one headline, one description. Many of our clients actually still run these. Surprisingly, you can't actually edit them, you can't make any tweaks to them, but they're still active and performing well. So the evolution of even ad templates was text ads to expanded text ads to responsive search ads. This was also somewhat of like an AI evolution prior to AI being such a hot topic as of late the last year or so. Value-based bidding is also another one that was rolled out on Google's end, still being pushed heavily by Google reps. We just typically don't see this success very well for B2B lead gen focused companies where you are attributing a artificial value to various lead stages, and then the algorithm sorts that out. That is also, AI based in its core. It's using the algorithm to identify higher value users, things like that. Doesn't typically work out very well from what we see. Other things, automated assets, Meta or Google is actually creating site links, images, things like that from you. So that is the Google world. When we get into Meta, Meta also has been pushing a lot of AI things. They're just not been coined AI in the past. So Advantage Plus targeting, this is new, the now widely adopted strategy when it comes to Facebook ads, less on the audience, more on the creative. Meta is also rolling out ad enhancements. They keep tweaking these month to month, if you guys notice within the platform. But those are still being ironed out. I don't know they're truly great impacts. Not all of them. Some of them are good. But yeah, AI Max is certainly not the last. Certainly not the first. Certainly not the last. Not the only AI thing these algorithms and platforms have put together. Many examples of those, even going back 4 or 5 years now, across Google, Meta, LinkedIn.
And I would say, something that all these examples kind of have in common is they're either not even fully adopted yet, or they took many years to be fully adopted, right? So as Keenan mentioned, the text ad transition, it's been a decade, literally. Value-based bidding, many clients are still not adopting that. Automated assets, we're still toggling them on and off, kind of depending. We have to evaluate. Advantage Plus is truly there. That's what we're using on Meta almost across the board. But it took 3 years or so since they rolled it out for us to adopt it and complete. So the point is like there's a lot of great evolution of the ad platforms, but there's just been so many examples of it taking a long time for the platforms to figure things out to the point where we adopt them as our sort of primary mainstay. But going back to AI Max a little bit, one of the things that I think about when it comes to new ad products is, does this give me new inventory? And I think specifically with AI Max, there's a lot of interest in the AI overview, and rightfully so. I mean, you can see the AI overview here on this screenshot, and it takes up maybe the top third of the page or something like that. So it's pretty notable. But AI Max doesn't get ads into the AI overview. So it's not actually giving us, AI Max is not actually giving us new inventory. So if it's not letting me access new inventory, I'm not that excited about it, frankly. Now, they claim that they're going to give us access to new inventory due to some additional keyword matching, and I'll talk about that next. But the bottom line is AI Max is not this huge product where all of a sudden we can reach twice as many users and we're in the AI overview, so on and so forth. It's really, truly, and utterly the early days of AI Max. No Google rep is going to tell you that. I'm not really sure why they don't like to kind of project the roadmap and talk about how something takes years to develop and get through. They're really just asking you to adopt it right away, a lot of times to your detriment. So yeah, bottom line is when thinking about a new feature, hey, does it give me new inventory? If not, a little bit less exciting. Then some of you guys might read some of these case studies that Google comes out with. There's one for L'Oreal, great brand, on AI Max. And I think what I want to say here is that a lot of these case studies are really unfair case studies. They're sort of picking situations where there's a lot of upside if I were to go into any account that didn't have broad match or maybe didn't have phrase match and kind of throw AI Max on there, you would get huge growth. That I feel very, very confident about. But it's not because of AI Max. It's because that prior to AI Max, the account manager really didn't build out the account properly, really hadn't had time to explore all of the networks and so on and so forth. So I kind of view AI Max and a lot of these things as a shortcut for mostly small businesses, to be fair, mostly for people that can't have a team that is really dedicated and working on this and trying to be clever and thoughtful with the Google Ads account. It's just trying to bypass a lot of that stuff in a really quick way. So anyways, another thing that I've noticed about AI Max specifically, and again, any product you need to look at this, we see Google reps a lot of the time say, hey, since adding on AI Max, we grew 10%. This is amazing. And then we sort of say, that's great. But then also the CPA went up 8% or 7% or whatever the number is. Had I just bid higher, 10% higher on my existing campaigns, I would have got that same growth. So what was the incremental effect of AI Max in that case? Nothing. AI Max effectively just acted as a way to bid higher. So there's a lot of Google team like positioning here to make you adopt a product for whatever reason. I'm not really sure. That's just what's written on their paper. That's what they get a bonus for. Doesn't always translate to being good for your business. So here's another example. And the point here is really evaluation more than being critical of AI Max. So one way to evaluate is when anybody, Google rep, Meta rep, in-house employee, sort of comes to you and says, hey, I did this new thing. I had 144% growth and only a 2.3% increase in CPA. This is a real slide that we got from Google. Actually, more accurately, just this center thing we got from Google. Hey, I got 144% growth. I said, wow, Google, you guys are so smart. You all went to Stanford. You went to like these amazing schools. I went to UC Riverside. What's going on here? You got to look at you got to like zoom back and look at the overall account while we were testing. And the overall account while we were testing only increased by 7%, and the CPA also increased by 3%. So Google rep is saying 144% growth. This is new and amazing. But our more logical brain is saying, wait, when you zoom back, we've barely grown at all, and the CPA is a little bit higher. So the next step here might be to roll out AI Max more, or like redo the test so it has more of an impact, something like that. We can't lead with this fake headline of 144% growth. That is going to cause us to make bad investment decisions. It's going to have a lot of negative consequences if we're focusing on something that is really not the whole story of AI Max. So yeah, we worked with Google, to be clear, to add in the left and add in the right. They kind of only gave us the center story, which I thought was extremely poor form from them. Another thing to think about with AI Max or any new product that comes out is like, how is it going to affect my targeting? And I think this is incredibly important for B2B, but also somewhat important for B2C. So for B2B, I see a lot of people curating and manicuring their targeting because they're trying to be in market. But then a new product comes out, let's say AI Max, and they just turn it on, therefore completely destroying all of their highly curated and manicured targeting for their small, ICP. So that's a B2B case. In the B2C case, you can kind of see here, we had AI Max, we turned it on, we got matched to all these things. And don't get me wrong, all of these things are relevant to this business, which happens to be monster.com. It's a job search engine. So with AI Max, we got matched to ZipRecruiter, which is another job search engine, Job Near Me, which is a relevant term, so on and so forth. But the problem is we turned AI Max on in this accounting specific campaign. So all the queries were supposed to be for accounting. That's important because Monster earns more money for accounting queries rather than these general ones. All of the ads in here are about accounting. All of the landing pages are about accounting. So basically AI Max said, I really don't care what you're trying to accomplish. I'm going to take a very wide matching approach here and just send in whatever traffic I feel like, even though I'm sending it to a campaign that is supposed to be very niche. So when we're thinking about a new product, when we're thinking about new targeting, we have to really ensure that it's not going to violate our strategy by applying it, no matter what the rep or the POC at the agency or the in-house person says. We need to take a step back, and there always has to be a mapping strategy. I think this is really important because when we think about the user experience, still, since the day I started and probably to the day that I stop in advertising, we want to provide alignment. Google is just trying to provide highly relevant answers, which could be an organic listing, it could be an ad. They're trying to provide highly relevant user experiences. And when you're employing something like AI Max that's just sort of doing whatever it feels like doing, it really disrupts that user experience. So a lot of traffic went through that AI Max search term in our little, the AI Max match type in our little case study here, but it would have gone elsewhere had we not had AI Max on. And overall, I think in that case, AI Max made overall performance far worse because it really destroyed the mappings. So what AI Max is good for, what DSA is good for when that was the new thing, what PMax is good for when that was the new thing, is really plugging existing holes, gathering a little bit more data, and just seeing if there's any search terms that maybe you're not being matched to otherwise, and you want to understand what those are. So that is the main use case, is sort of discovery, and I definitely think that's important, but that is not the primary case of any sort of advertiser, right? That's just sort of a long-term evergreen growth strategy. So all those products really just do that long-term evergreen growth strategy. Another thing to think about when it comes to new products or new ways to access the same inventory more specifically, which again, AI Max is, PMax is, DSA is, keyword campaigns are, all accessing Google search, is you're creating a lot of potential for Google to match you to different places. So when I was coming up in this business, we talked a lot about ad rank. I can't remember the last time I heard somebody say ad rank, but it's one of these fundamental things that you can never forget about. So ad rank really determines, where you show up on the page. It is equal parts how much you're bidding and equal parts your quality score. So if you bid $1 with a 1 quality score, that would be a 10. If you bid $2 with a 4 quality score, that would be an 8. So in that example, the higher bid, lower quality score ad would show, which is really interesting because that violates providing a good user experience. There is a tool that Google has. It's called the Ad Preview and Diagnostic tool. If you were to go in there and put any keyword that you have in your account, you'll see some ludicrous things. So I put in jobs near me, which is one of the search terms that AI Max matches to, and it matched 32 keywords in my account. So did AI Max do anything? It just changed it from 31 matches to 32 matches. Definitely not a win for us. It sort of destroyed our mappings in that case. And the reason why is because it had a higher ad rank, but the reason for the higher ad rank wasn't so much the quality score. The landing page was less relevant. The ads were less relevant. But in that particular case, we had a higher bid because accounting queries were worth more for us. So we created a very bad user experience, overpaid on our CPCs, all because we wanted to try AI Max. I'm sorry, that's undisputably a loss. It was a very poor decision for us to employ AI Max in this campaign. Had we thought about it, had we pushed back on Google reps, had we pushed back on our client, we would have never ran this test, and we would have never had these negative learnings, right? We can't just test everything. That becomes very, very wasteful. So I don't want to talk too much about AI Max in specific. I want to use it to unravel, how we think about features in general. The first thing for AI Max is when you read the documentation, it's effectively a new match type. So there's exact match, phrase match, and broad match. You can see these nested rectangles here. Google hasn't changed this image yet, but if they were, AI Max would just be a little bit bigger of a rectangle. Does that really help my business? I mean, if I can't make exact match work and phrase match work, I'm not going to make AI match work. Google is very, very intent-based. You have to have high quality of intent in order for people to convert on your site. So a new match type, not that exciting. Not new inventory, as we mentioned, and it really messes up a lot of the mappings that I had in the past, when likely, if my business has gotten to the point that it's at, I probably have a pretty decent ad account, aka pretty decent mappings, pretty decent bids, so on and so forth. So we have to be very, very cautious with some of these new things. Now, That said, we do need to try the new things. So I think what we need to do is understand them and then find somewhere where it would make sense for us to fit in these new products. So AI Max does extremely wide matching. So I want to kind of fit it into a campaign whose purpose is extremely wide mapping already. So in our case, for Monster, it was this general jobs campaign. So I think it makes a lot of sense to turn AI Max on just in that campaign and see how it does. I expect that campaign to grow 100+% when I put AI Max on it. But what I'm really looking for is not how that campaign does or the experiment branch of that campaign, but how does my account do overall? If the experiment branch of that campaign grows 157%, but my account shrinks 14% in that process, I really need to review the search terms of that experiment branch and understand why my account shrunk during that period of time. Was it just happenstance, or did AI Max actually make my performance worse? And it is very possible that AI Max could make performance worse, particularly as a new product. Another thing, if you're a little bit new to marketing, Google, Meta, all ad platforms, they release their new products and then they iterate on them. So we like to adopt new products in the alpha stage or the beta stage. But for certain organizations, it may make sense to just wait if you aren't sure, because I almost guarantee, like a video game nowadays, there's going to be updates to these products. So it's in beta, but there's already an update to AI Max, and it's because while the Google sales reps may just be pitching products relentlessly, the Google engineering team, I think, really does focus on making good products. They launched AI Max. They saw the very, very bad mappings that I showed an example of, and they're already changing AI Max, at least in the beta stage, to match search terms only based on the keywords that you already have in that ad group. That to me makes tons of sense. I'm excited about that feature. I kind of want it to use the keywords that I'm buying as a guide, not just have it be a free-for-all, because that will really damage account performance. So I'm almost done with my section here. Excited to hear Keenan in a minute. But just recapping a couple things. When a new product comes out, how does it affect my query mapping, or how does it affect my targeting in general? If it affects it in a very big way, that could be good or that could be bad, right? Again, if you're B2B and this is going to triple the size of your audience, this is a bad feature for you. You can't sell to people that aren't in market to buy, or at least aren't sort of good matches for you within your ICP. When I turn something new on, when I add a new channel, when I do a new thing, there's sort of like the in-platform performance, and we have to look at that. That's critical. But there's also like things like, did my business grow? I mean, we've all sort of been there. Hey, my Google rep is saying, my account manager is saying, Google grew 70%, but my business is 5% down. Why is that? My recommendation as leaders would be focus on the 5% down. I know it sounds like bad advice. I know it sounds like you're kind of being negative or aggressive towards your team, but what really matters and what really keeps us all paid is the health of the business. If the business doesn't do well, none of us have jobs, right? So we need the team to understand that. Stop just like thinking about your channel and how your channel is up 70% according to your channel, and start thinking about the health of the business, right? So even if you don't want to dig into the details, always reference the business and how it's doing. Another thing in evaluating new products is, does it add new inventory? I think that's just sort of a simple yes or no. Number 4, which I didn't talk about, is like, does this enhance or detract from my brand? Keenan hopefully will talk about it a little bit later, but we think in this age of AI and just getting a lot of stuff done very easily, brands most likely need to lean into their authenticity, like who they are. There's product differentiation, but there's also brand differentiation. Are you a really quirky brand? Are you a formal brand? So on and so forth. So if you're a formal brand and then you roll out some AI product that just does whatever it wants, it's going to be completely incongruent with what your brand voice is. And in the short term, that may not matter. Keep in mind, I'm a performance marketer, but in the long term, that may have damaging effects to your brand. And then another one is, and nobody really talks about this at all, is like, how much attention is this new thing taking? Like, AI Max in particular was crazy to me. Like, we have this roadmap, we're growing, everything is fine with most of our clients, we're hitting goals. AI Max comes out, and then VP is like, we got to jump all over this. And I'm like, why? Like, what's the justification? The Google sales team told you to? That doesn't make sense. Like, let's look at our roadmap. Like, we were going to make new landing pages. We were going to do a new email marketing program. We need to focus on those things that are more proven to be effective growth. And then let's also seed in AI Max or the new thing. But this is just the side of fries. Like, don't forget the entree. Don't forget how we make the majority of our money. Just because it has the word AI in it, to me, doesn't mean that we need to shift towards it. We need to test it, and then we need to do what's right for growing our business. Because again, if the business suffers, we all suffer. So yeah, last words I'll say here is, again, we're very excited about alphas and betas with Google and Meta and all these things. Wayne Gretzky says, skate to where the puck is gonna be. I think in marketing, the quote that I've always had is like, I just want to be where the puck is at. And then in marketing, we're always watching how that puck is moving, and we're always moving forward or backwards or whatever the case is. But in order to get the best results today, we need to focus on today, the tools that we have, with 15 or 20% of our consciousness towards the future. And then we need to show up to work every single day, work hard, and just monitor where that puck is, sort of in the timeline thing. So hopefully that was helpful, and I'll turn it over to Keenan.
Thanks, Mike. So we want to talk about talked a lot about AI Max on the search side of thing, which is not as a creative platform as that is Meta. So I want to shift over to that a little bit. But before we do that, a quick recap is like this webinar, this presentation isn't about how AI is bad, rather than it's simply an emerging tool. We need to add this tool to our arsenal. It needs to be used. It needs to be tested. But what we can't do is just change the whole direction of the ship. Like Mike was saying, we have a beautiful roadmap, landing pages, very impactful things. What we don't want to do or don't recommend is just really changing the course of the ship to test things like AI Max, really dive into that, really bet the business on these things. AI can help write scripts, write articles, create variations of images. In the future, agents are going to be able to reach out to prospects at scale. And there's tons of other things, as we all know in this space, that AI, ChatGPT, those platforms, those tools can help improve your efficiencies. So we want to talk about how AI is giving you an edge and not necessarily driving the ship. So in related to, next slide here, creative, there's a lot of movement, a lot of talk in the industry about AI creative. Making cheaper ads, faster ads, but are these ads actually good? Are they actually compelling enough to make the users want to convert, want to take action on your site? We personally don't think so. We've seen many cases of AI ads roll out at scale, in bulk, expensive AI ads, even cheap AI ads, and they really don't work well, look well, unless there's a skillful creative strategist or someone really directing these prompts, making final tweaks to the final product, those sorts of things. So we have a couple examples of these ads. I won't play this. The deck will be shared. You guys can watch these videos yourself. But this is an example of an AI ad. The woman here in the bottom right is actually an AI. She does a voiceover. The voiceover sounds kind of iffy. They mask it a little bit with some music, things like that. And then there's just B-roll running in the background. So that's one simple ad. This is also another one from Gusto, produced by the company OmniKey, which is a pretty big player in the industry of AI generative ads. But does this ad actually look good? The people are visibly AI generated. They're not real people. Is this compelling enough to make me as a user, as a business owner needing a payroll? Do I like the fact that these are fake people? Does it bother me? Do I need some real people to really be compelled to take action here? These are always missing a little element of realness, authenticity, being genuine. It does feel like an ad, right? Not necessarily a problem solver for me.
I think furthermore, an ad that could be made by a designer in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. This is another ad. This is a little kind of GIF video, plays a little bit, but it's nothing special, right? This is an AI generated ad. The baby moves and bobbles his head a little bit, but there's nothing too special that someone can't do. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily compelling. As a father too, I love the baby, but to me, it's not a compelling ad that's going to drive, 10x my business, anything like that.
Yeah, I do want to just reiterate, all of these examples are literally on the home pages of tools that help you make AI ads. So they're considering these to be like the best that they have available today. Now it literally might change, like tomorrow or next week. We'll see. I kind of hope it does. But where it's at, like right now, right this second, or at least the time of making this webinar, is like those are the real answers to what these AI creative companies are generating.
Yeah. Mike, you want to talk about the Kelshi ad here?
Sure. So I was at Brandformance, which is a thing from Google, and they were also showing a lot of AI ads. One of them, by the way, was just a Mercedes G-Wagon driving down the streets of New York. And it said, something like, hey, if you're an investor, you should buy a G-Wagon. And they were very proud of this ad. And I said, wow, I mean, how low is the novelty factor there? Just because I'm in New York and I see the New York skyline and I also invest, like I'm just going to go buy a G-Wagon. I'm like, there's nothing compelling about what you've said. And that was sort of in the context of an amazing product, or what's considered to be an amazing product. So anyways, maybe I can find that later and send that over. But this is a Kelshi ad that they also showed at Brandformance. It's super cool. There's like a lot of explosions and old men with their shirts off running around, and people talking about how they're fans of sports teams, and it looks good and it looks like real people. And I really wasn't sure if it was AI or not, but it turns out it's 100% AI, and it's a cool ad, or at least I thought. But the truth behind it is that this is PJ Ace, I guess, made this ad. He sort of said, hey, it was quick to make this ad. When I kind of read what he wrote, though, I was like, wow, there was a lot of work that went into this. He said he did 400 generations to get 15 usable clips. It took one person 2 days. So I'm assuming that's 2 work days, maybe like 16 to 20 hours. And it's a 95% cost reduction. So to me, I'm like, okay, that was a fair bit of work and it could be really cheap. And he doesn't say how much he spent making this or how much he charged to make this. But prior or elsewhere in the article, he says that this ad was competing against ads that cost $400,000 to make. So if you take 5% of 400,000, maybe this ad costs $20,000 to make. To me, that's pretty expensive. 10,000 is pretty expensive, right? Compared to what we could make with a UGC actor. Now, it's not going to be as cool and over the top as that, but I don't really think it was that easy or that cheap. And then PJ also says, hey, just because I made this cool ad doesn't mean that anybody can make this cool ad. He's been a director for 15 years. And then he even says what I think is interesting, I can get 80 to 90% of the results. And I was like, PJ, it's tough out there. A lot of businesses are running at 10% margin. If you're getting 80% the results, are we even in business anymore? Is that all of our profit out the table because our new ads convert 20% worse than our old ads? I'm embellishing. I'm kind of taking the quote and kind of running with it a little bit. But I really like this because I thought it was very realistic and fair and accurate and kind of matches what we see, right, in the market. So yeah, check that Kelshi ad out. Let us know what you think. But I don't know if it was that cheap to make, and I don't know if it was really that easy. There's also another thing that happened pretty recently is Mark Zuckerberg, and I don't want to read all of his words, but he basically said that advertising was going to be automated, and everybody kind of talks about the first part of that commentary. What they don't talk about is that he says actually a lot of it already is automated, right? And I agree, but I also agree that I have to come into work every single day and work very hard to kind of fill in the blanks. So it's a tool. It's nice that some of the targeting is automated, but there's still a lot for us to do. And then what's also cut out is just a second part of what he talks about. He basically says that the automation is for a small business, right? Or maybe a larger one. So that word maybe, he's kind of hedging. And then he says, maybe you'll get better results. And then he says, you could just come with a goal. So I think the second part of this sentence from Mark is really, maybe he got a little carried away. He was being CEO. He's like, this is vision. And then the second part is kind of grounding it into a more realistic scenario where if you're a small business with very little budget, no time to hire real practitioners, then you could use AI to make ads. And I don't think that's a thing of the future. I think that's a thing of the now. I mean, I think that exists now. Will that move your business forward? Very unlikely, in my opinion, right? So yeah, really look at what Mark said there, and see if it's as compelling as you thought originally. So I'll turn it back over to Keenan. Keenan's going to go over a real example of what Meta is producing today, given an image asset in advance.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is a real example, as Mike said, currently in market, currently live. So this is what a designer produced. Pretty simple ad, nothing too crazy. It does look nice, it is neat. It has very compelling elements in it. Flash sale, 50% off, big tags, things like that. So as you build this ad out in Meta, it gives you a lot of these AI enhancements, AI generated content, things like that. So what is Meta showing here? What are they doing? These are the variations it comes back with. Different backgrounds, couple different elements. It's on grass. It adds dog toys in one of them. So they're not too bad, but would you actually run these? Do you think these would actually produce better results than the initial ad created by a real designer? I don't think so. In some cases, some of the text is even cut off. You can make tweaks to these, you can fine tune it, but again, this is where there is human iterations on top of the AI generated thing. So at the moment, our opinion is that AI generated content is just missing a little bit of the fine tuning, right? There's some odd elements in here. The toys don't look real. It's all of a sudden on this floating stool or something in a room. Anyways, you can see there's a lot of human intervention needed in some of these ads. And that's just adding some different iterations of the current creative. Meta also will generate some creative here for you. So when you look at the ads that it generates the full image, the entire aspect of this ad, it does some funky things. There's like an old woman holding a bottle. Like this is for dogs, it's for pets. It's an allergy supplement. But you see a older woman holding what looks like she's taking these allergy supplements now. In the bottom right, there's actually a floating dog even. So again, are these compelling ads? Are they any better than even close to better than what was produced on the other side? Definitely not. There's still a lot of room to here. I think many of these can be tied to like Canva templates, things like that, things easily done by not a non-designer. So yeah, the ad space, the AI ad space is still a long ways away, I think, and there needs to be some notion of human intervention, things like that. I don't think Meta, again, is just there yet on some of these AI created assets.
I want to point out the ordering too. So by the time these images are created, not only had we given Meta the seed image, but we've already written the text for the ad. So like it's very clear at that point what we're selling, how we're selling it. Meta has the landing page, and yet it creates what you see before you. It's not even putting the product in here. So the truth is, a practitioner, like we just skip all this because it's so bad. It adds no value. It's just like an extra step in our workflow at this point. A month from now, a year from now, I might have a different opinion, but today, this is what you see in the platform, and it's far from useful.
So when should companies, businesses invest in AI images? I think early on when they need to produce mass amounts of ads. And these aren't just random ads made, right? There needs to be some sort of design to testing these mass quantity ads. You need to gather learnings from the initial push. But the initial push can be, you launch 30, 40 different ads, 30, 40 different, maybe 10, 20 different angles, things like that on the ads. And then you quickly get the winners out of that. You find what Meta likes, what your people like, what the audience likes, and you can identify some winning trends. And then you need to iterate on those winning trends. But for businesses to grow and scale, it becomes less about the quantity of ads and more about the quality of the ads. How compelling can you make these ads? Are you beating the winners, or are the new ads consistently losing? What about that winner makes it such a good ad? On the video side, is the hook really strong? Is the selling aspect in the middle of that video really strong? It needs to become less about, again, the cheap and easy to produce route, and more on the very quality, very intent with the learning of these creatives. So there's various stages of companies. Again, early on, the mass produced ads is a good start, but the strategy definitely needs to shift as spend goes in, as learning comes in, and learn more about what is a champion ad, what makes that champion ad, how do you iterate and make more champion ads. On the Kalshi ad that Mike shared, hopefully you guys take a watch of that video. It is a cool, exciting video. And even though it's cool and exciting, there's still a lot of backlash when it comes to AI videos. I've seen it many times with the clients I manage. We produce an AI, AI avatars, things like that in the ads, and people just do not like it. There's the sense of trolls on the internet, as we all know, and people really go after these AIs. The bots are taking over, the Terminator's coming, all those kinds of things start happening. And that, even though that Kalshi ad here is really cool, again, you see a lot of bad backlash here. So even though companies need to and should invest in AI creative, they need to continue to lean into their brand, their authenticity. They need to make sure that they don't lose themselves in this AI generation or this AI generated content. There needs to be this notion of still producing genuine content. People recognize the brand. You're building your brand story for the long term. It can't be all AI, quick money grabs here and there. It's just not going to grow the business long term. So closing remarks. Again, none of this has been about how AI is bad. Rather, it's a tool. We need to continue to test new betas. New tools are going to constantly be emerging. Again, we cannot steer the whole ship into that new direction. It needs to be tested. We need to segment testing off. There needs to be a certain testing budget. If you don't have a testing budget, you should develop one, cut some out. There's probably some fat to trim out or get some more allocation budget to testing, because these tools can win for you, and most times we don't see that. But there is and needs to be this notion of testing these new things as they roll out, so that you're not kind of left behind as they do get better and better. As Mike shared with the AI Max example, we can't just solely focus on that single test. We need to take a step back and look more holistically. Are we saving? How much time, how much cost are we saving using AI generated content? How much impact did AI Max have on the account overall? Did it only make that one campaign grow, but the whole business actually shrunk? We got to be looking at those. AI, as stated earlier, is a productivity tool. It's only as good as the operator, right? It's only as good as the prompt given. If you're giving it bad prompts, it's going to produce bad things. It's very, it needs to be refined. It needs to be used as efficiency.
I think just on the prompt thing, it's not a matter of wording what you say better or things like that. It's just like, what is the idea that's really compelling, right? And however you word that to AI, to me, isn't that important. It's like, what is important is like, how good of an idea is it? And then you might say, well, maybe AI is really good at coming up with clever, compelling ideas. Try it. My answer is it's terrible. Like, it has no creativity whatsoever. It doesn't understand what would move a user from A to B. And I'm not saying that every single marketer does either, but I am saying if you're a big brand, you have to find that 1%, 2% of marketers that are able to be compelling. If AI ever became compelling, then everybody would be compelling, and then we'd have a new definition of what stands out and what's compelling. So it's always going to be the top 3 to 5 to 10% of brands that are really setting the standard as to what's interesting to users. And Keenan doing this for 10 years and me doing this for 15 years, user behavior has changed a lot, and it's also very cyclical as well. So it changes and then it comes back, and it is what it is. And a lot of that is sort of a result of what tools we have available to us and what most people are doing versus what we're doing. Cool. And then this last one, you want to go over that, Keenan?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. As always, don't forget what matters, in its simplest form. What is digital marketing? They're going to see your ads. They're going to see your landing page. They're going to see your product. That's what they're going to see. They're not going to see the tools behind it. They're not going to see the ChatGPT prompts you made to write that ad copy, anything like that, right? It's what really matters is your ad, the landing, the product. So make sure you're doing those things good, doing them well, testing iterations of all of those. And then that's what's going to drive results, right? Not necessarily the AI that's backing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Danny, we're going to end the presentation here in a moment. But just real briefly about us, usually we start with this, but we've been in business for a really long time. We manage a lot of money. We work on paid media platforms. We have a lot of certificates. We work with big logos. So that's kind of us. More important than 415 Digital, I always appreciate. I get to work with Keenan. I get to work with Borja. I get to work with individual team members. So we take a lot of pride in our individual identities, maybe more so than our company identity. But yeah, that's who we are real quick. So Danny, unless you have anything to add, I think we have about 15 minutes for questions. So we didn't do bad on the time management, actually. We did all right, Keenan.
Yep.
All right, you guys ready to dive into some Q&A?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So yeah, if you have any questions for Mike and Keenan, now's your chance to ask them. We already got some questions in, so we'll dive right in. Corey had a question. Curious to see your thoughts on PMAX in regards to branded terms. We have negated branded terms, but continue to see a direct correlation with a drop in results in branded campaigns when increasing spend on PMAX. Do you know if PMAX still overlaps in some way?
Yeah, you definitely want to exclude brand from PMAX. PMAX purpose is to get new users for you, not steal your old ones. If it's not doing that, then it's not doing a good job. As for the second part of your question, it sort of seems to imply that maybe some brand traffic is still getting in there. Certainly, we got to look at the search term report that PMAX gives us now and a few other things. I haven't had that experience. I think we've been able to create like pretty clear branded silos, like brand goes here, non-brand goes here. We still have that control. So if your brand demand is down, it may be something procedural with PMAX, but it may also be something unrelated. Like, did you guys stop doing YouTube? Did you stop doing, Meta or something top of funnel? So unfortunately, I need to look deeper. Happy to look deeper, but that's my immediate answer. Keenan, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, there's two ways to go about negating branded terms. I'm sure you're aware the brand exclusion is one route, but you can also get the negative keyword list applied. Just make sure misspellings, things like that are there. But yeah, maybe there's some other kind of other factors in play when PMAX is scaled. Maybe that budget comes from YouTube or something like that, like Mike is saying.
Okay. We had a question. The person who asked it, we may need some clarification here. It's very broad. ARR asked for local business. Which ads would you recommend? I know that's very hard because there are a lot of different types of local businesses. So,
yeah, I think you do need to lean into the ads that are more or less automated, the quote unquote smart campaigns, the Advantage Pluses. That's just because you're not going to have the human capital to manage, something that's less automated. You're probably not going to want to choose an agency like us. We're very expensive. I think there's a lot of marketers with 1 to 2 years experience who can set a local business up with some of these basic 90+% automated campaigns, and you can run and you can maybe have success. When you're bound by a small geo radius, you do have to be wider with the targeting that you have, simply because if you were super narrow, you wouldn't be able to spend anything with your small business. So if you had an extremely small budget, maybe $300, I might have a different answer for you. Maybe go hire somebody on Fiverr to build out some exact match keywords. But if you had like a medium budget, $3K, $5K a month, yeah, I would just say do PMAX, make sure the settings are right, and see what kind of results you get. That may work for a small business, maybe 50% chance, I'd say.
Yeah, there's also the local service ads. As long as you have your business is within one of those categories, that's a pay per qualified platform. So you really only pay for qualified users. Google changed the definition of qualified maybe about a year ago. They deem if it's qualified or not. You used to be able to do that. So you'd really truly only pay for qualified leads. But that's another one. You basically set the bid, which is how much you're willing to pay for one of these qualified users or leads, and that's what you pay. So that's another good opportunity to kind of test the waters of Google, again, as long as there's a category applicable to your business.
All right, let's go to another question. Owen asks, what's your number one recommendation for using AI to analyze Google ad campaigns?
Oh, I don't use AI to analyze Google ad campaigns. It's kind of like I'm trying to be the best in the world at search. Like, I should be the one training the AI. It shouldn't be training me. When you've been doing this for so long, like, there's not efficiency gained from it. It's just sort of adding in another person whose understanding of the topic is less than yours. In theoretical land, how would I use AI? I would do my analysis and then send it to ChatGPT and ask it to find typos for me because I do a lot of typos. Sure, I could definitely ask it or any third-party tools what it finds, but when you're truly a practitioner, the findings that you get back or the Google recommendations, they're fourth grade and you're trying to be in college. That's kind of the best way that I can show that gap. They may be impressive to people that are not hands-on practitioners, but if you're truly an expert at what you do, I can't find a use case. Have you found one, Keenan?
Maybe if there's like a roadblock and you're trying to get some like more macro level insights to identify some current trends, but that's about it. And even in that, you don't necessarily need AI. It's just using it as another search platform.
Okay. We have a question from Elizabeth. Do you have a preference between using display versus a demand gen campaign for awareness?
Yeah, I think they're different inventory, first and foremost. The display inventory is basically third party. There is a fair bit of fraud in display. I think from a performance standpoint, display is very, very important. But from an awareness standpoint, I'd be extremely concerned to do awareness on display. So I would choose demand gen 10 times out of 10 on that. For anybody that doesn't know, demand gen is Google owned and operated inventory only, so it's much more premium. If you're trying to do awareness, you don't want to pay for fraud, and Google's properties have little to no fraud versus a third-party property has a lot of fraud. So always would choose demand gen. I would also, if given the option, really focus on video. I think measuring video performance from an uplift standpoint is still an emerging field, but just even doing it like topically, like video's impact seems to be a fair bit larger than image ad impact from a brand perspective. From a performance perspective, not necessarily. But yeah, that's my thoughts there. Demand gen 10 out of 10 times.
Yep.
All right. Question from, I believe it's Theunus. How do LLMs influence Google Ads inside of the AI snippets, which I'm not sure if that's referring to AI overviews maybe, and how can you optimize better for it?
So we're really a paid media agency. We're not really able to comment too much on SEO. I mean, we could, but I believe in an extreme expertise. So my short answer is I don't really know. From a paid perspective, my belief is that Google, ChatGPT, all LLMs need to monetize. Of course, a decent amount of their revenue is going to be subscriptions of some form. But throughout history, the internet has been an ad-supported thing. So I do think ChatGPT, Google AI, Gronk, all these things, I don't even know their names anymore because there's so many of them. They will eventually have an ad-supported model. And part of AI Max's evolution will be actually getting you into the AI snippets or the AI overview. And what that will look like, we can only speculate, but I can definitively say it's not there right now. I've never seen an ad in the AI overview. I'm sure it's coming soon. Maybe it's been there in the past, but like what we have right now is just give Google the same stuff that we've always given them, and there's no change on our side.
Okay. Next question's from Chrissy. Google's pushing AI Max for search, which we're very wary of. Their recent recommendation is to run it on a seasonal, non-brand campaign that historically struggles, such as holiday terms. And she says we're a nonprofit asking for donations. Do you have any thoughts on that you could share?
Yeah, my thought is feel free to run it, monitor search terms, but what you have right now seems to be not working. So expanding the net even further, I mean, what's the likelihood that AI Max would make it work? It seems very unlikely to me, right? So run that test and confirm it. But then if that's true and it's not a miracle cure, I think there needs to be a conversation about why is this aspect of the business not working and how are we going to fix that? And I hope that you don't have that conversation with the Google sales rep. I think that will be a very challenging conversation for them. Rather, that's a conversation to have with a business person, somebody who really understands performance marketing and is looking to grow your business. So yeah, give it a go. But if you can't make keyword campaigns work, I think it's very unlikely that you can make AI Max enabled keyword campaigns work.
All right. So as we wrap up, do you have any kind of final, I don't know, we're rapidly approaching the holiday time of the year and the new year. Is there any sort of tips that you want to maybe give for people as we approach end of year and as we're starting to think about even 2026 right now?
Yeah, tips. I think that a lot of testing with AI Max, anything could be done very, very quickly. So go in there and test it. I used to be a math teacher. Keenan forgot that part in my introduction, or maybe wasn't that interesting. So like I appreciate like analysis and like mental gymnastics and like pondering and all that stuff. But when it comes to marketing, speed, testing, analyzing things fairly, like that is the most important attribute. So don't sit here and my tip would be don't sit here and overanalyze things. Get in market and then know how to evaluate what you just put in market. If it doesn't work, fold. If it does work, double down on it, and just do that in an extremely high velocity. Like I think there's a lot of analogies that you can make, but like to me, I am like very, very fast because I think if I can do 100 things with a 60% success rate, I will crush people that can only do 5 things with an 80% success rate, right? So that is something that you learn at an agency is the benefit of iteration, speed. Yes, we need to talk sometimes, but we need to balance talking with doing. I would say let's do 20% talking, 80% doing would be kind of my thought. But surely Keenan has some tips as well.
Yeah, well, in relation to the holidays, start planning now if you haven't. It's coming quick. But yeah, it's just an opportunity to kind of lean in with what works. So get the testing done, as Mike's saying, lean in with working, and then understand your LTVs and understand your LTVs for people acquired during the holidays versus during non-holiday time, right? That LTV may be a little bit different. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're very profit focused, profit future focused sort of thing. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think just to add a little bit to that, I mean, you don't want to be testing on Black Friday.
Yeah,
you want to have figured that out, far in advance. So that's definitely a time period where maybe measuring twice, cutting once is better than the normal MO, which I think is more, I don't know, let's test it. That's kind of the normal MO. I've done this for a long time. Keenan's done this for a long time. I think because I've done it for a long time, my success rate on tests is quite high, but I feel like I'm wrong almost as often as I'm right still. So.
Okay, well, we'll leave it on that note. That's all the time we have today. I think we answered all the questions, but if we missed any questions, we'll be sure to pass those along to 415 Digital. So on behalf of Search Engine Land, I want to thank Mike and Keenan for their engaging and great presentation. And thanks to all of you for attending our webinar. We hope you join us again soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.